friends. I'm your host Shashi with you all on Women Dialogues to create more voice for women and by women. And today's our guest is connecting from Houston, Texas, Lillian. She is a leadership and career strategist. She has done lots of programs for leadership development. She has lots of things to talk about how we can develop our leadership. As we always talk about, this is for women and by women. And we don't want our women to feel that they are having some kind of any inferiority. We are here to give you all kind of support. Lillian is here to share how we can develop that kind of leadership qualities in us. So let's join our hands together and welcome our today's speaker, Lillian Davenport. Welcome, Lillian, on Women Dialogues Talk Show.
Thank you, Dr. Shashi. I am so happy to be with you today. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Lillian, as well for accepting our request and being with us to create those leadership movement for all of us and inspire and motivate us. So let's hear from you how we can become a leader, how we can develop those leadership as you do a lot of program, you deliver those kind of courses and program to your clients as well. So before coming on your leadership, let's hear about your life journey and how it end up being having a leadership and strategist leader yourself as you run these kind of program. So share about your life journey, how you grew up, what kind of challenges, what kind of journey you had. So please share with us.
Well, thank you so much for asking and starting with that question. It's a good place for me to start today. I'm in the US, in the United States, and I grew up in a part of the US that's referred to as the Deep South. Mm-hmm. So the Deep South, I was in the state of Mississippi, and I grew up in the countryside. My parents owned a farm. Mm-hmm. And we were farmers, not a big farm, but a working farm. And they were laborers. My dad finished the 4th grade with an education, and my mom finished the 8th grade. So they were laborers, and they taught me and my siblings, they taught us what we could. And that was, work hard, keep your head down, and work hard, you get ahead, stay out of trouble. They didn't tell us all the rest of the things that really was a part of being successful. And I think they were successful in their own rights. Mm-hmm. So I come from deep roots of being part of the first generation to actually finish high school. So my mm-hmm. siblings and I are along that first generation. But with my family, I'm number 9, so I'm the youngest of 9 children. I was the first to actually earn an undergraduate degree from a university. I was the first to earn an advanced degree. I was the first to actually work in corporate. No one else had done that. And I did marry early. So I married while I was still in college, and my husband finished, and my husband and I finished college. And when I finished, we packed up everything that we owned. We had been in the countryside, no lights for me. I lived in the country, no lights, just think deep back on the countryside. No lights, no nearby neighbors, no corner store, anything of that nature. We packed up everything that we owned on the back of a white truck, open bed truck, and drove 500 miles to the big city of Houston, Texas. We're 4th largest city in the United States now, and full of lights, full of streets, full of noise. And here this kid, this little girl from the backside of Mississippi, made it to the country, to the big city. So that was a big change.
Right, that's true.
It was. So I started, and I had a wonderful degree, but I started very, very low out in the workplace. I started my first big job, I will say, on my way to really being able to rise, was producing an agent's report, a life insurance agent's report. And the short name of the report was the pig report. So no matter what I did, I just could not leave that farm. It was the farm thing. So I bookended my career in corporate. I started with insurance, 13 years there. I bookended with another 3 years at the end. In the middle, it was about 20 years in financial services. The front end of my career, I can say I had 11 promotions out of 12 years. And you would have thought that was good, but if you started at the very bottom, all I could do was go up and be able to rise. Somewhere within that 11 promotions, I was doing that, working hard, doing exactly what my parents had told me to do. Work hard and you'll get ahead. But somewhere along the road, I figured out performance alone is not enough. It takes a whole lot more than that to be successful. And that came to me when I was side by side with a colleague, and she was continuing to rise, and I had kind of stagnated. And I had to figure out something is wrong. I need to do something differently. Right. And so I made some shifts. So the good thing is I started out with my career of very low in my career with production in general. I ended my corporate career actually being the director of shared services for a global company for North America, so for Canada and the United States. So I would say I made a big change and a big shift along the way.
Wonderful. And that sounds very inspiring and motivating, the way you shared about your life journey, about your early life journey, like the way you grew up in a countryside in a small town, and then you shift all the way in such a big city or place where you have a lot of hustle and bustle, but same time you have those, as you shared, those lights, those noise, which can give you more sense of how you can grow up and you want to see yourself. So Lillian, as hearing this is really inspiring. But when we are talking about your work, as you are leadership and career strategist as well, along with your position as a director, so how this leadership qualities got developed in you? Because when we hear from you, you shared your childhood where you understand that hard work is only the key and just keep going on. And where I definitely understand hard work is the key. But along with that, when we say leadership, which is like to be ahead rather than just working on and remain silent, right? It's a little contrast. How you get that contrast, how you develop that in you, and then same time now you are delivering. You are now yourself a leadership and career strategist, successful mentor and coach as well. How you develop all the way?
Well, that definitely is a good question there, because I think a part of it is knowing your craft. So being comfortable, and what I found even working with my clients, when they are comfortable in their craft, it's easier to step out. I think the other thing for me was going from a mindset of being a doer to actually having a mindset, even though I did not have a leadership title, begin to act like a leader, begin to act like that person who is hosting rather than always being the guest of something. So think about this: when you come into a gathering, the hostess is usually, or the host is usually introducing individuals to each other. They are making sure that everyone is aware, they feel included in those things. If you're the guest, you're standing on the wall and you're kind of waiting for someone to come and tap you on your shoulder and say, well, would you like to have this assignment? I think this is good for you. Well, rather than waiting, it's that shift in that mindset that I had to say, well, volunteer. So I remember when doing my banking career, there was a merger. The company that I worked for was bought by the larger company. And so at that point, I had to determine, well, how do I set myself apart? I don't have the title of the executive leader, but I have to be able to set myself apart some kind of way because we're bringing two cultures together. And so what I decided to do was listen at what the pain points were, and then step up and raise my hand and say, you know what, I think I can help with that. So it's all about that mindset shift and taking advantage of the opportunities, delivering, building relationships at the same time. But you don't have to have that leadership title behind you. You don't have to have the title of manager or anything of that sort to step out and show what you are about and what you can do beyond.
That's very beautiful said, as you shared how you can, take that kind of mindset rather than thinking about those titles. And that's kind of very important in talking about whether we are developing our career individually or whether we are trying to see ourselves on a bigger scale. And sharing it is really important that you bring this point out, like how we can shift our mindset rather than thinking about those titles. So Lillian, you are sharing about it, that you took a step out, and as we know, many times it is like hard to take a step out. What motivates you in that time? How you find, like, I want to do that?
You know what? It's that thing of when someone says you can't do something, it's like, oh, yes, I can. So now that can, and especially I kind of work with women that can work for us or that can work against us. But for me, the stepping out was looking at ways, that internal motivation that I had, that I knew that I knew where I came from. And I knew that I wanted to do differently. I knew what my parents had been exposed to as laborers. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what they also instilled in us is each generation should do and strive to be just a little bit stronger, go a little bit farther than what the previous generation went. So for me, it was a matter of that internal motivation, being up close and personal with understanding who I am, what my passions are, what my strengths are, what I really enjoy, and having a vision of where I wanted to be. I know where I had been, and I needed to know where I wanted to go. So it was that wanting to go and that vision in front of me that kept me being able to propel forward and know what I wanted to say yes to, and maybe what I did not want to say yes to because it was not working into my advantage or the organization's advantage.
Right. And when we're talking about those vision and all, now you develop those vision and those kind of purpose in people's life, and you are passionate for people of color, women of color. You give them that sense how they can develop that kind of vision, that kind of leadership. Would you mind sharing your work about that as well? How you do that and how it delivers?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a client that comes to mind with me, and she doesn't mind me using her name. She'll get some fame for this as well. Ashley Curry. She had just finished, she was graduated from college, and she knew what she had gotten her degree in, but along the way, she drifted to something else. And it's easy for us to drift because we want to make a living. We want to feel like we're moving forward, but not necessarily remaining focused on our passion. So she had drifted to something else. So she engaged me to say, you know, I know what I'm passionate about, but what I'm doing, it's not bringing me joy. It's not bringing me satisfaction at this point. So how I worked with her was basically, you know, let's listen. Let's talk about before the world came in and told you what you couldn't do based upon the present situation. what is that passion that you had in your heart? So we walked our way and we worked our way through that. But I also love being able to use independent assessments as well, because sometimes we need to step away from ourselves. We think we know, but we need that objective look from something else. So we used an assessment as well to help do that framing. So between good, rich conversation, good probing questions, and giving her the space to be able to reflect and really reconnect with what had been her passion before all the noise that come along and said, you know, you really can't do this and you're not in the right place. And then using that independent assessment, I was able to work with her, and she was able to come up with reframing what she wanted to do. And yes, you need to make a living. So I told you, you totally understand that. But how do you also connect with what that passion that you have 5 years from now, where would you like to see yourself? 10 years from now, where would you like to see yourself? And the truth is, and the premise that I work on is, without a vision, you likely will perish, because you're going to fall to the wayside, and everything that seems to be a shiny object and seems to be good, you keep going off of these ramps that are taking you off course of where you really want to be. So working with her was able to establish what her vision is. And now, even though she has a day job that helps to meet the immediate needs, she knows what her long-term goal is, and she has some things in place that she's working toward that as well.
Yeah.
And
I think that way, as you shared, it's a really very important point you bring it out here, how one can see immediate need versus long term, I can say short versus long term. And many times we all have this hassle, like, okay, what way we want to see. So would you like to share with our audience how they can design that kind of for them, their own life? What kind of things they should keep in their mind when they are looking, immediate versus long term, their vision, their plan, their, aims? Yeah.
Absolutely. Typically, where I would say is, start with your values. Start with your value system, determining what your values are. What are those things that must be in place for you, or you just do not feel a sense of being fulfilled? So if you start with the values, even when you begin to explore opportunities, and when I say values, if family is a high value for you, then that means that you probably won't be taking a job that's requiring 80 hours of work, because the family is the highest value. So figure out what the values are. Once with the values, then determining, what is it that I really want to accomplish? Why do I think I was put on this earth? What am I supposed to accomplish while I'm here, professionally or personally? And then from there, at least getting a sense of what you believe that you are to accomplish. Then think about, envision what success would look like for you, maybe 5 years from now, 10 years from now, even to the point of possibly even writing a letter to yourself that says, 10 years from now, this is what I would like to be. This is the place where I would like to be. This is what I would like to be doing. That becomes that target that you can work toward, and then back yourself from that. So 5 years, this is where I see myself. Well, what is it going to take for me to be able to achieve that 5-year vision? What are those big rocks? And when I say big rocks, think about when you have that container, you want to put the big rocks in first, and then you put your sand in, and you put your water in, you're able to get so much more in. So what are those big rocks that I really do want to make sure that I get accomplished, so that when 5 years from now and I open that letter up, I'm not saying, oh my goodness, I didn't make it, but I'm saying, oh, I made it, and I'm even farther than that. So it's a process, and I very much work in a process type way. that it's not necessarily always a sequence that you have to follow, but at least have a framework to follow so that you're moving toward where you want to go. So if you just do those things, and knowing what your ultimate goal is, what your values are, and what those milestones are in between, you stand a better chance of being able to open that letter and say, you know what, I made this bullseye.
Yeah, I think that's very beautifully break up in the process, how you can create those kind of framework, and how you can, develop that processing steps along while hitting your target, hitting your aim and purpose, what you are looking forward in your life. So that's very important as for, I think, for all of us when we are talking about to see ourselves at some point of time, at some place in our personal life, in professional life, wherever they want. So when we talk about all these kind of things, many time, as you was talking about initial needs versus long-term needs, how you give them that sense to put little extra while balancing their initial need. Because as we in current time, why I'm trying to ask you this, because in current time during COVID, it became so much important that we have to focus our initial, but same time should not lose our that goal for long term, and how we can do that initial versus not to deviate, not to lose that focus, maybe dropping one drop or one step in that process for 10 years along the line.
Oh, absolutely. And I think we have to keep our eye on the initial need, because it's getting past this moment right now so that we can enjoy what the future is. But also, I would say at the same time, it's good to have a good vision of the future, because that vision of the future is giving us fuel to be able to deal with the present time that may be a little bit rough. So it's keeping our eye on the long haul, while we take care of the immediate needs. And that's one of the reasons that I even named my company End View Solutions, because it's so easy to kind of take those off ramps and forget what the end view was to begin with. So I think, Dr. Shashi, you have an excellent point, is that we have needs right now, but if we know where we're going in the future, that vision of the future will energize us to be able to deal with the pain points right now, and then continue to work toward that. And we can still make decisions right now that fuel into our future. We just have to be intentional about what those are.
Thank you for breaking out again, and making it more affirmative words by your your expertise, that how we can do that. Coming on the point, when we are talking about your passion, you are that you really like to work, and you are passionate for women of color, for their development and all. And when we are talking about our passion and our vision, we find sometimes some kind of association, some kind of, maybe we have our own history or our own story, right? And when we are talking all these points, what way you feel is still we are lacking, and we need to work on that. We need to pump up, we need to push in particular that segment, to give them that sense that it is now not like that. You need to understand and go and develop your these leadership, go and do that. Very few like you have got like that step out, and they say, okay, I'm gonna do that, right? That's volunteer hand, which you shared in your work experience. How we can develop that, in that confidence, that kind of leadership, when we are bringing your passion in women of color.
Well, I would say to that, Dr. Shashi, there are a few things that occur. And in my working with women, and where I have really centered my practice around, is on three things. And that is building confidence, building courage, and building capabilities. And that confidence comes, that imposter syndrome is a true thing, I think. It's not necessarily for everyone, but for many that I've spoken to, it's amazing how that concept comes out. Women have done well in whatever they have put their head and their heart to do. But yet when the opportunity comes up for something that's new, sometimes we shy away and say, well, why me? I can't do this. I don't have all the skill sets and all the knowledge, and I don't know all the right people in order to get it done. So I'm going to just let somebody else do this. I'm not going to do it. So that's part of that confidence part. And that's why where I've come in and I've built a program to help with that. The courage part of it, I wish I had spoken up. You know, I was thinking that, and I should have said that, but I didn't say it. I waited for somebody else to say it. And then I want to come behind and say, you know, I was thinking that. Well, I was thinking that is not as powerful as being the first one to say it. So it's getting past that as well. And then the capabilities part of it is sometimes we are in positions and not always trained. We have the technical capabilities, but we haven't been trained from the leadership perspective capabilities. So we find ourselves through trial and error testing things out. Or even more so than that, if you are a leader by title and you have employees staff members who are reporting to you, what's the best way to actively engage them? And you know, we've heard about Gallup, and Gallup says for the most part, it's only about 34% of the population that's really engaged in the workforce. Now that's non-management or non-leadership staff. And then there's a whopping 35% of leaders who are engaged. So think about this. You have about 1/3 of the population at any point in time who's actively engaged at work. Now that means they're showing up emotionally and intellectually ready to contribute to achieving those goals. And so as a leader, and the reason why I focus on the capabilities part of it is that sometimes women of color, women period, we think we need to do everything ourselves because if it doesn't work right, the failure is going to come back to us and we're going to be responsible for it. But as a leader, one of the best things that we can ever do is identify the right people to be in the right seats on the team, and then define and delegate and hold them accountable for doing the work. And what that does is free us up as those who are in those leadership roles, leading these big business functions. It frees us up to focus on the things that only we can do. What are those things that I cannot delegate to someone else, that I should not delegate to someone else, because it's my responsibility to think about the strategy for the organization. Where are we going? What could potentially cause us issues? And this doesn't mean that strategic thinking is confined to those who have the CEO title. Each one of us need to think like a CEO when we're leading a business function.
Yeah,
so
and that's beautiful share. That's beautiful, very important. I would say one thing that you told very affirmatively and very strongly, that why we have that fear, maybe as an imposter syndrome, we always feel like we have, oh, I don't know, maybe you are good in technical, but you might not be having those skills, but why not take these steps? Like I can get support of team, people, and then share the work and have that courage to take that lead. So I think those are very important for all of women, because we all, many times when I talk with my speakers, they all are wonderful speakers. They all have those leadership capabilities, and they all are doing wonderful. But a part of that, when I'm talking about my audience who are listening and watching us, I always try to make them to learn that something, that yes, you no need to think that you are hanging on something, you are stuck in something, you can't do something. As you said, this imposter syndrome keep us in our shell. It doesn't allow us to develop or come out from that shell. And how we can do that, maybe creating that kind of mindset as you're sharing. Okay, share the responsibility, take the leading role, and find you have people to ask for support, or building the team. And I think that's very important when we are talking about it. What right way and what is right approach do you think when we are talking about building that kind of approach, having a leadership role and taking those lead? What right way they can think that they should develop that, how they can do this team building work as well?
How they can do the team building work as well. It is number one, it's starting with, and I will say it again, it is so important to identify the right individuals to be on your team. And I say this from the standpoint of some leaders may be a little bit intimidated to have individuals who are smarter than they on the team. I am not one of those people, because I figured that if I have individuals who are smarter than me on the team, I'm not going to have to work so hard. They're going to do the work, and they're going to be actively engaged in the work. So I think that's a start. And with that teamwork, it's definitely not necessarily coming out. And we hear this, and it's as simple as sometimes when a leader is facilitating a meeting, if you start out already telling your team members what you think, it doesn't give them any room and the freedom and the courage to think something differently than yourself. So it's those little techniques that maybe haven't been taught in school, unless you have really been astute in the workplace and actually was mentored by a leader that was pretty strong, because we don't always see that. But if you see that you're mentored by a leader that's pretty strong, you're going to pick up on techniques that you can actually use to engage, to actively engage in your staff members. And that's part of what I do. I did create a master class program that a part of that, a whole segment is dedicated to build your leadership legacy. And with that leadership legacy, actually going through ways that you can strategically and intentionally build engagement on your team. And then helping you to look internally and saying, where is it that I'm possibly standing in the way of that engagement? And helping you to get yourself out of the way so that you can get those team members totally engaged. In fact, it's said that organizations in the US are losing upward of $400 billion a year in revenue and productivity because of poor engagement. So just think, if you can be the leader, that you can have all 10 or all 20, 100% or at least 90% of your team that's coming in every day, that's emotionally, intellectually bought in. And they're coming in, what can we do more, better, or differently? How can we make this more efficient? Life is going to be better for the organization, and life is definitely going to be better for you as a leader, because you're going to get more work and life balance there.
So we hear about your work, we hear about your program, and we hear how we can develop ourselves by having a good approach, by creating team, by developing our confidence to become a leader, our work and all. How you define your leadership quality, how you define your leadership?
Oh, that is an awesome question. I'm gonna have to give that. I would define myself as a servant leader. And I really base that upon my biblical principles, is that I don't come in to be served, but to serve, and to really see how I can support others. I've even, from the perspective of working with my clients, they will tell me that, you know what, you're pretty direct, but we know that you love us and you're doing it because of that. So it's helping those that I'm working with, whether it is a client or when I was in corporate and actually had a team working with me, and drilling down to my front level team as well. How is it that I can actually help them to become the best that they can be toward the vision that they have set for themselves? And part of that is just sitting down, and when I say a servant leader, is sitting down and listening to what is working well, what the pain points are, what's your vision, where you want to stretch yourself, and then connecting them with opportunity, connecting with people, connecting with encouragement. And yes, I do say that I am a cheerleader, and that may not necessarily be what one wants to see, but I feel that as a leader, there are times that you have to give that tough love, but there are times that you really do need to be a cheerleader and be sensitive to what will actually help someone else be their the best that they can be, living unto their purpose.
That's very, I think, a nice approach to have it as a leader, and so to feel like, okay, as a servant leadership or cheerleader, having that approach, having all this you said, what way you feel having such kind of talk shows or such kind of platform like Women Dialogue is important, and what way they are playing crucial role in terms of when we are talking all this leadership, developing, our women voice and all the way. How you find that?
I think this is an absolutely divine platform. One is, I love it that you are international. So meeting women where they are, regardless of their geography. And the truth is, by having so many different speakers, there is a high likelihood that the audience is going to connect to someone. And with that someone, all we're asking, and I know for myself when I'm participating, all I'm asking for, if I can pick up on one thing that will help me be stronger, be more confident in what I'm doing, bring voice to what I'm doing, and just be able to make a meaningful impact, a win for others and a win for myself, because it's not always about me, winning for the organization and winning for myself, then I think your platform will definitely have is making a tremendous dent in where we want to go. And it's encouraging women to be all that they can be in the moment and in the future.
Thank you. Thank you. Your words are really so humble, and it's really so important for us to have that same passion, same vision, and same the purpose where we are today, and why we want to have this women voice, to give them that sense how we can help them to develop that leadership, and along with that, how we can serve those unheard, those silent voice, those can hear us, those can get the same passion and purpose in their life, and can maybe get little spark in their life, maybe get inspired by you. Oh, she told she has that kind of background, but today she developed that same way. Why should I not? Why I can't? So I really admire, I really so thankful that you shared your story. You shared so authentically your work, your vision, your purpose for your work, along with your life, with your leaving the impact on people's life. So thank you, Lillian, being with us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shashi, for having me today.
And thanks to all our listeners who are listening and watching us. As you know, we always bring something very important for you to develop and to grow. As you hear today's our speaker, Lillian, she taught us about how we can become a good leader, how we can develop those confidence, those all skills. So in the same way, for your development and growth, we are always here with you. With the same note, I will leave you here to listen and grow, and we will connect soon with this next episode. Till then, take care, stay safe, stay connected. And yes, don't forget, I'm gonna put the detail and description about Lillian in the description as well. So if you would like to get more leadership tips, more work to be done in your life, in your work, get connected with Lillian as well. See you next time. Till then, take care. Bye-bye.